It's Sunday night, so you're probably watching this Monday morning. We got the stock market opening up tomorrow morning. I just want to go over a couple things with you ahead of time, mainly because I am just boatload through homework right now. So, to give you an idea of what my life looks like, this is my calendar from last week. So, I'm sure you can see it right here. It's supposed to look, well, it's supposed to be blank, but I've kind of run out of room because there's so much stuff that I'm doing. Anyway, for those who haven't watched in the last couple videos, I started law school, which, if you go back to the very beginning of the COVID investing, it was about, you know, earning money to get something you want. We're talking about a house, a car, a Tesla, whatever it is. And then November, um, basically decided to go to law school and, have enough to pay for it, basically. So, with that being said, I want to cover a couple things with you, just macro things you want to look at. We have our moments of BS that we're going to call on this video as well. We'll just go ahead and get started. So, one of my sources of news, I have an old Yahoo email account. It's really my junk mail account right now, mainly because Yahoo, a number of years back, actually came out and said they're data mining your emails, like no joke. And I think it was because Verizon bought them out. They're trying to make Yahoo try to squeeze every nickel you can out of it. So I just use it as junk mail. Nothing substantive goes in, but they end up sending me these Yahoo Finance emails. So anyway, a couple big macro things we're going to look at today. So specifically, consumer spending, which nobody's talking about right now, either for or against for the most part. So anyway, this guy wrote a small little blog here. Against the noise backdrop of corporate earnings warnings, steady drip of market correction calls, which if you don't think those are by people that want to make money off you, you haven't been around very long. These people want you to think the market's going to go down so you can sell your stock and they can buy it cheap. Honestly, that's what they're looking to do. But anyway, he said, I inhaled a whiff of hopium, so opium and hope, on the surprising August retail sales report that showed consumers are spending their stockpile of savings for higher wages from their new gig on a fresh pair of jeans or back to school supplies, or for me, for law school, which is a big chunk. So anyway, with that being said, people are spending money. So you're thinking, okay, is that kind of a one-off? So then this guy writes an article, and we'll take a look at the date on this. Actually, they're same date later on. Let's see, 27th. We'll take a look and see if it's the same guy. I didn't even look. All right, Brian Sozzi, presumably Italian. Who knows? Could be Russian. Let's take a look at this guy. Nope, Javier David. Same, different dude. So, American consumers saving the world again. So, for weeks, markets have been unsettled by relentless jitters about COVID-19, which again, that's why reason why we're investing and making money. Possible shutdown in China may drag down global growth. My thought on that is you don't know. I mean, it could happen for sure. I'm not going to tell you it's not going to happen. But China is not exactly the one that's spewing out accurate information, and that could work both ways. Like they're trying to hide something bad, or they are putting something out to spook the market on this side. Which, if you're China, don't put that past them. I mean, that is totally possible. But China's goal is to be the number one undisputed superpower in the world, and you have to ask yourself, will the whole, what is it called? I forget the name of that company. I think it was in. I want to say it was in here. It was one of the articles we looked at. It was like brand something or other, the Chinese real estate company. Yeah, maybe it's not here, but it was somewhere else. Is going to sit here and get in the way of that? And the answer is absolutely not. There's no way. So anyway, this guy writes an article. U.S. consumers are riding the rescue yet again by spending with reckless abandon in the face of potentially stagnating growth. And we're going to talk about, is that really going to happen? Because there's some signals out there that that's actually not going to happen. And by the way, it's kind of backwards. People are spending money on all these other businesses, and yet their growth is not going to be there. Like either they're getting money from people or they're not. So kind of which is it, right? So anyway, August retail sales surprised on the upside. And although the data saw a sharp downward revision, they spiked 12% year over year. So anyway, let's see. So that's being said, so we ask, kind of kind of how are we going to look at whether there's going to be stagnation? And a lot of the stagnation so far has been and I'm not saying Trump wouldn't have done this, but he's not president. Biden's decision to, um, just kind of have a heavy authoritarian hand on people, um, and make people question whether, there's going to be a government intervention that really limits their business growth. And so what happened is Biden wanted to extend the emergency unemployment insurance. So for those that are on insurance, it extends them farther than what they normally get in their state, and then it gives them a plus up of what, $400 or whatever it is. I don't know. I didn't get it. And Biden wants to keep it going because he wants people to, I don't know what he wants, because the guy is a potato, basically. But presumably he wants people to not being on massive unemployment rolls, because it's bad enough to be Jimmy Carter, or worse than Jimmy Carter, which he is, because I used to live when Jimmy Carter was around. But Herbert Hoover is the name he's really trying to avoid. And so he's trying to get them to extend them, but the states actually have to extend them. I mean, the federal government can offer it to the states, but the states actually say, "Oh yeah, we want your money, we'll take it." So the question is, how many states took him up on that offer? Well, the answer is 0. No state extends unemployment benefits despite calls from Biden. What that means is that anybody who is on unemployment, they're going to, instead of making more money than they made when they were working, they're all of a sudden going to be in a point where they're going to be like, holy crap, I got to pay my rent, I got to pay for food, I got to pay my cell phone bill, and they're going to go out and get a job. And so what that really means for the macro is, when there was the unemployment benefits and you wanted a job, you can get any job you want. I mean, I shouldn't say that. You can get any job in the service sector you want, which doesn't necessarily pay a whole lot. But they'll hire you on the spot, and you don't really have a whole lot of competition. But as soon as the state ends these unemployment benefits, then you're going to see a mass of people applying for jobs, and it's going to be way more competitive and more difficult by extension to get said job. So what that means is you're going to have more employees, more bandwidth, which means the restaurants are going to be open longer, bigger menus, more people to serve, more people that can come in the restaurant at a given time, and you're going to see growth go up. So to go back to our main thing here, where I talked about here, they're saying, was it this one? No, maybe it was this one. Yeah, about potentially stagnating growth. I think this one right here, again, all these people at Yahoo Finance need to talk to each other, kind of answers that question. So, all right. We talked about China. We talked about the U.S. They're talking about a debt ceiling coming up. Like, okay, if they don't pass something, I think it's by the end of this month or the end of the next month, I don't know which one it is, then all of a sudden the federal government's going to shut down. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. I've been around long enough to see it plenty of times. In fact, the only time I've ever really been to Washington, D.C. proper, was to go visit American University. And when I went there, the whole federal government was shut down. So it's happened before, it'll happen again. It's not the end of the world. These are panicked people trying to make people say, oh my gosh, you got to pass that bill no matter what's in it. And then when you look at what's in it, it's an absolute crap fest. So I wouldn't get too wrapped up about that. It's not a big deal. It's part of our constitutional republic, and we've had it for 200 plus years. This is going to pass in a heartbeat. So with that in mind, just you hear that, I wouldn't believe it all, and then just look for opportunities to buy and make money off these people. Let's take a look here. What was the other one? Yeah, so Evergrande, that was the Chinese company that we talked about, which is a big problem in China, but you have an authoritarian government, so they're just not going to let things happen. They're going to take care of Evergrande one way or another. So, one of the things that happened earlier this week, if we look at the drop here, we'll go back to a month. If you look at this drop right here, this right here was Jerome Powell hinted that the long-awaited gradual pullback in the pace of stimulative bond buying was high. So what that means is, it doesn't mean they're going to cut, like if there's this much money that the federal government, the Federal Reserve's throwing at, and there's not the same thing, I should say that, the Federal Reserve's throwing at the market, right? It's not saying that they're going to take it at, let's say, $1 trillion. I'm making up the number. $1 trillion, and they're going to drop down to 500,000. Oh my gosh. What they're saying is it's going up like this, and instead of going at this rate, it's just going to go at that rate. So it's still going to go up. And so people got spooked on it, right? So I'm sitting there about 140 then. went down to, let's see, what's the low it hit? About 131. And guess what? We're sitting at 152 right now. So people out there understand that, first of all, it's not really much to worry about. Second of all, you have to understand Jerome Powell is honestly a bunny rabbit. Like the guy has no spine whatsoever. And by the way, Carol Roth have contributed to her website. So the fact that she's making fun of um, Jerome Powell, I think is pretty funny. So, all right. Last thing, we're going to get to the vaccine. So Biden's desperately trying to get boosters mandated. So they're recommended for 65 years or older. They're recommended for people that are like on the COVID short list, diabetes, hypertension, massively obese, things like that. But he's trying to get the CDC to issue a mandate for everybody. And I think he and everybody else knows that the minute you do that, you're going to create so much resistance against it that it's going to just not even going to be worth it. You're going to create more resistance than you would ever have, whatever. But we have to look at it and forget about the policy and the rhetoric going on. You have to ask yourself, qui bono, as they say in Latin. And by the way, that's a quote from The Departed. So who benefits if there's a vaccine mandate? Well, the answer is the vaccine companies, right? And so it's funny as you have two vaccine CEOs basically coming out and saying things that are just kind of interesting. So one of them I don't know that is entirely true. I think it's a political answer. Moderna's president. We don't really know if future COVID shots will be necessary. Again, he's not saying it's not, but he's basically saying, please don't shoot me by saying something in public because I don't want to bring all this negative attention to my company. But don't you think for a minute that this guy doesn't want millions and billions of people getting injections that a government will pay for? Like, it's the biggest no-brainer in the world. I mean, if you open a hamburger shop and the government said, we're thinking of mandating hamburgers for lunch from your shop. In fact, your shop, this shop, and this shop. 3 shops, we're going to mandate everybody in the United States eat hamburgers from lunch. You think you want the mandate? Of course you want the mandate. And the guy at Pfizer, just who they are, they run the FDA. The guys at Pfizer just took his gloves off. All he said was the CDC's decision to push boosters against recommendations was a very good one. And for those people who aren't following, what it means is that the CDC panel, these are all the experts, and they're the less political people. I'm not saying they're not political, but they're the less political people, came out and said, yeah, we're not recommending a booster for everybody. And Rochelle Walensky, which I have a video dedicated to her, probably the least qualified person to run the CDC in its entire history. And if there's one worse, that's shame on them. She basically overruled them on her own. There's nobody that sided with her. And this guy comes out, the CEO of Pfizer, and says, oh yeah, that decision to go against all the scientific minds, that was a very good one. Well, I bet it's a good one. You're running Pfizer. Can you imagine if she said, no, we're not going to recommend it? All of a sudden, at some point, this massive faucet of money is going to turn off for your company. And he's got stock options on the line, I'm sure. And probably bonus kickers on his contract where, if they make a certain amount of money or a certain increase in price on the share price for their stock, you get to pay grade or increased stock options. I know how that works. I worked in a company, we had the same thing. So with that being said, just understand what's going on. So with that, we'll take one last thing. We'll look at what we've done recently, and we'll look at kind of big pictures. So overall, all right, let's go over here. So I sold Robinhood only because I just want to focus my money elsewhere. Ironically, I sold it for $42.50, and then it went up to like $46 the same day. So, oh well. But it's sitting at about $45 right now. No big deal. I'm not too worried about that. I bought DraftKings at $52, so it's sitting a little bit under $52 right now. But I wanted to get my holdings up. It was at like $2,000. So I got it up to $5. I still might buy some more DraftKings because guess what? It's football season. And when they do earnings announcements later in the year, I think this is a stock that's going to pop. And then AVCT, it's a cloud computing company. They had a really rough day. We bought it at $3 and it's sitting at about $3 right now. But it's one. In fact, we'll take a look at this one. This chart was really interesting. And I normally wouldn't buy AVCT. I owned it before. It's not my wheelhouse right now. But I looked at this chart, and it's going down, down, down. But you think, okay, why, Matt, are you buying it? But it's it went up all the way up to about $9, spiked up to about $8. Honestly, this was kind of its average for the long time, about $6. And it was sitting either at $6 or 450, and then it went down. I'm like, dude, if I can get it $3, I'll get it. And look, if it's at $3 and it doesn't do much, I'll sell it. No big deal. But if it even goes back up to like right here where it's at $6, I'm going to double my money. So that was the other one that I came in and I thought we're going to do that. So with that in mind, we still have Zovio that we might buy. That's probably not going to hit for a while. Soho, which is probably not going to hit for a while. And then kind of my bench that nothing really jumps out at me right now. I'll take a look and see what the market does this week. But we're looking at COVID reopening stocks and seeing where we want to be. So with that being said, we're sitting at about 152, 157 as a Friday, which is, did we go up or down since Friday? Yeah, about the same, 152 on there. And our goal is to get back over 200,000, and then we're going to start our liquidations again. So we're on the right track. Big picture things, just again, number one, consumers are spending money like crazy. Number two, people are going to be going back to work, so you're going to see capacity go up in the market. Three, China I don't think is a big deal because they have much greater goals of taking over the world. Four, the freak show was not really a freak show. We saw that go back up. And lastly, don't believe the hype. The vaccine makers, hold on, want everybody to buy their product. Shocker. And want the government to coerce and force people to buy their product. So shocker, shocker, shocker. So see through the mess, understand that things are going the right way. But the biggest thing that we learned today is that people are spending their, quote, stockpile of savings on a fresh pair of jeans or back to school spots or higher wages, either way. So with that being said, you know your margin orders, my friend. If you have any questions about a stock or what to do, you're on the fence on something, let me know, and I will let you know my thoughts. All right. Deuces out. I got law school.